All right, 3 o'clock. I appreciate your fortitude for being here on a beautiful day out, and you're here. So we're going to talk today about how expanded positive response will reduce damages. I think I'd like to just get an idea on how many people, whether it's mandatory or not, have positive response in the states you operate or work in. All right, who doesn't? All right, today's the day, bud. We're gonna give you all the information you need to get set up. Well, whether you have it or don't have it, I do feel, and I'm very passionate, obviously, those of you that know me, I'm very passionate about positive response. I think there's a tremendous amount of data that you're able to collect as part of utilizing positive response. I think behaviors and validation is what I want you guys to think about. Think about behaviors and validations of behaviors. Again, it comes down to data. My board's really adamant about making decisions based on data and the trends that we see, the behaviors that we see. So I'm going to just kind of jump into it. We got quite a bit of content to go through here. Most of you that have seen, whether you were in the one call session or you were in any of the other stakeholder summits, you probably have seen these slides. They're not new. But what is the greatest challenge in the damage prevention industry or to the damage prevention industry? Surveys have shown, second number was lack of communication. First one was late locates. I'm going to challenge that positive response can help with both of these issues, generally, right? One of the things that we don't know right now in its, I guess, in granular approach, we don't know exactly why everything is late, okay? We're going to kind of dive into that. But I really do want to focus on communication. Right now, positive response is a one-way conversation. I'm probably sure most of you in this room are married, and you've probably had a one-way conversation once in your life. It doesn't usually go well, and there's not a lot of information that's shared generally. And I think that's where we are with positive response. While it's an improvement to the process, it's still very much a one-way conversation. Operators providing information, excavators receiving it, but they don't have an ability to give any sort of feedback as part of that process. So I'm going to kind of go through what our definition is in South Carolina. Automated information system that allows excavators, locators, operators, and interested parties to determine the status of a locate request until it's complete. And I highlighted the word complete because our state is a little bit different. I don't know too many states, if any, that have the process of requiring a ticket to be closed out when the work is complete by the excavator. I think it's a good process. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think it's a good process and how we're going to use that as we go into this. And CJ is going to jump in here anytime he's ready. All right. We also talked about this earlier. Enhanced positive response. There is no actual definition in the CGA best practices, but there is a section in the best practices 3.31 that talks about what we call enhanced positive response. I kind of want to take it a little bit further than enhanced positive response. I do feel it offers a little bit more information on a locate, but I kind of want to go even beyond what we're looking at as far as additional information. That's very broad, very vague. It doesn't give us a lot to kind of sink our teeth into and move forward with from a data set or otherwise. And as you well know, there's some bills going around from PHMSA and other groups that I really do feel if 811 centers don't put this at the front of their perspective, move forward with technology, that eventually regulators will. With technology, we'll do anything that we want it to do, but obviously what we're doing in South Carolina has had to be vetted out through our board of directors, working with our technology companies. But I do think if we don't do something about it, regulators will. Does anybody know what AII is, or what that stands for? I have to write it down because I can never remember. Advanced Innovation Infrastructure Group. So they've put out several different studies. I put the link here at the bottom of the page, and these slides are available in the app. You can download them from there. There's some PDF versions available, so you'll be able to take a look at all this stuff. But enhanced positive response, you can see that first section there. UtiliQuest, I didn't see Thurman in the room here anywhere.
Nick's here.
Who is? Nick?
Nick's here.
All right, perfect. So UtiliQuest is working on, and Nick, what state are they working on utilizing the links?
We have it in Oregon.
Oregon, I heard. What was the other one?
Maryland.
Maryland, okay. So I think it's a great process. I'm going to kind of show you a little bit about what they do there. But one of the things part of this study has talked about is when that information is provided with the manifest, I'm going to show you what it looks like, 67% of the time they'll see a decrease in damage rates. I think more information is better than less. And for the excavators in this room, I think you can appreciate that. More information on the job site, whether it's facility records, whether it's a manifest, whether it's an attachment, showing you where your dig site marker was, whatever the thing is, more information is better than less. We've also got a reference down here that PHMSA is kind of pointing out. Advancements in technology. We've had positive response for a long time, and one of the things I keep hearing is it hasn't gone anywhere in the last several years. It's the same thing. It's just the same iteration over and over. We still have states that don't even have it, that it's not mandatory, or they just don't have the technology tools in general. It's been there a long time. We have to make some advancements, and I think it takes the One Call Center to kind of try to push what that looks like. So Thurman provided me this visual so that you could kind of get an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about a manifest. So one of the ways that UtiliQuest interjects this into a ticket is providing a link, and I believe that link expires. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, it's an HTML link that we can schedule to expire.
Okay, so it's an HTML link that expires. It's linked to the ticket, and it provides all of the pertinent information, which I think is awesome. I mean, as an excavator, this is a great tool. Hope to God, no damages take place as a result of this, but the fact that a locator wants to provide this just shows that they're trying to be diligent in their process. Obviously, Nick's group can't provide this unless the operator says they're allowed to provide it. Either way, more information. Doesn't matter if all of the facility owners are willing to do this, at least one is going to help as it relates to damage prevention. So if any of you are looking to either do what we've done or take a simulation of what we've done, I'm just going to kind of dissect this into some considerations you might want to think about. So obviously you got to have a response system to be able to figure out what two-way communication looks like. You got to get with one way first, right? Start with one way. I think if you haven't got positive response at this point, there's a very good possibility as we start advancing this with our technology folks and our state that these sorts of things might be readily available by the time you decide to move to positive response if you don't have it. So two-way communication is what I'm trying to get to. Excavators can currently go in and check positive response, but they don't have a way to respond. I'm going to show you some of the tools that we already have in place in our Exactix system slash Earth Solutions. We still refer to it as Exactix, but this will be providing like real-time validation, notifications that I've kind of noted there, and those are just positive response codes that we use, and I'm going to show you some visuals on those. Our code 60s and 30s. 30 is the locate wasn't complete, and that's pretty much it. There's a lot of potential variables that go into that. Code 60 for us is a locator and excavator have agreed to a documented marking schedule. Probably a lot of what you see in large projects, jobs that take a long timeline or as far as mileage, it's a really long duration ticket. Response data shows operator locator behaviors are drivers for impacting improper code usage. How many states are seeing improper code usage in their states? Right? A lot of ticket screening, things of that nature going on. It's really tough to validate misuse without positive response, even in its base model, right? So think about that. I do think that we've constantly talked about having difficulty from state to state. There's no commonality. I mean, there's variations. Even the language is different on the same exact response code from state to state. No conflict will probably be the main one, but then and you go to another state, no conflict is, give me another example. I'm trying to think. Clear, right. Same thing. Different terminology. We can't get on the same page from a one-call perspective. I think if you decide to take this route, and what we're looking to do, it kind of gives you the ability to kind of implode what you have and start over. Let's start trying to get to that point where we have consistency from state to state, whether it be the code numbers or the language that you're using to do them. Bulk responders, the large UtiliQuest companies, USICs, anyone else like Cortera, any of the DigTix groups and folks that are creating technology tools that different stakeholders use, consider that those people have a major system change with what I'm about to show you that's going to have to happen for this to get into fruition. It's not an easy process, so they have to know in advance what that looks like, and you have to build a roadmap for them. And then operational processes, I don't think people consider what we call a 3-hour notice if someone hasn't responded. We call it a no-show ticket. I'm sure somebody else calls it 7 different things, because that's how we operate. But a no-show essentially gives an operator 3 hours. If they didn't respond to the initial ticket, they have to go out and mark that. The secondary way that that process works systematically or procedurally within your center, you might have to consider that when you start changing around these codes. It's like throwing a pebble in a pond. One thing changes and it creates ripples in some of your other operational procedures, so consider that. Path forward, all right. So I'm going to talk about where we're at. We have sat down with our board over the last several months and looked at all of our positive response codes and then addressed, okay, what are the behavior issues that we're trying to address? Where do we need to know more about what happens on a locate ticket? Where do we need to know more? And I'm going to focus on those code 30 and code 60 ones I mentioned earlier, just to give you some specific examples. But in its infancy, most of you could probably have 50 codes in your positive response repertoire. But at the end of the day, those three things are really the main premise of everything that we're trying to get to. Was it marked? Was it not marked? Or was it no conflict? You could have 50 different codes saying 1,000 different things, but at the end of the day, that 56% that was on that previous slide that addresses that an excavator can't dig, none of those things can happen unless this is validated. You need a marked or no conflict. But we want to know more about why it wasn't marked, if it wasn't marked. Okay? So what we're focusing and doing is kind of getting things down to that more base model. Like, let's focus on those three and start looking at what we're going to call subcodes. Right now, we're kind of kicking around with our developers alphanumeric, you know, a 30A, B, C, D. All of them will have a relevant perspective of what they stand for. Focused on two-way communication, operator, locator, and excavator, because those aren't always the same in every instance. We do want to incorporate what Nick's team has with links to manifests. This could also include links to your facilities, right? So think about API technology and how you can utilize that going forward in your system. It becomes part of the embedding process in the positive response itself. There's comments, there's notes. You're not just getting a code, you can have other peripheral information that's coming with that, attachments, all kinds of things. Just get your mind around that. We're also looking to expand this to opt-in text message notifications, and I'm just throwing out a couple examples of what I would consider or I would want if I was an excavator. Grant you, excavators do not want a text message on every single ticket that they may have. There may be thousands, hundreds of thousands of tickets in the system for any single excavator. However, consider this. Maybe you're a small excavator group. You have this main project that you're trying to work on. You have everything you need to go get the job done, and you're waiting on that ticket, and you want to know when that last guy has gone out there to do what you want him to do. You could take that ticket number and say, I want to receive a text message notification on that particular ticket number, let's just say. Or I want to know every time somebody puts a code 30 and says they can't locate it. Just a thought, right? Think about that. We already have the ability to add text message notifications into our system. I'm going to kind of talk through and show you some visuals of what that might look like for you guys. We're also looking to get feedback on the excavator side, good and bad, right? At the end of the day, excavators do have the ability to add a comment in our system right now. Do they use it? Not so much. If they had more to kind of work with, and they were able to effectively track downtime, let's just say, or other peripheral information that happens on a ticket, we want to be able to include that in codes and representations that they would have when they close a ticket out with us. Does that make sense? We also are considering looking, and this is again been kicked around with the board, and we're going back and forth on this one, but being able to easily allow no-show, like if someone hasn't provided the appropriate code, being able to no-show from that screen is a consideration for that, just to expedite that process. And we've also considered, we do have enforcement in South Carolina, so we haven't thought about enforcement triggers, being able to capture that data and information. We have some automated forms now that we have set up on our website, where if you put a ticket number in, it pulls all the ticket data in. We could easily be capturing some of that information from those screens that the excavator's working in. And then also address variations, or address code variations from state to state. If you're gonna blow up your codes and start over, look at your neighbors, look at some of the other industry people, and start focusing on getting to that, data standardization that we're trying to get to. If you're gonna change them anyway, now's the time to try to get some, forward movement on what that looks like. All right, CJ.
And if you can't tell, I'm riding Misty's coattails big time on this entire session here. But no, the reason that I'm up here is to, as we support Misty and the group that folks who use Exactix, is just to be a voice to say, the data that you guys have is valuable. And when I say you, I mean one call centers in general. How important is that data? Remarkably valuable. And keeping that data within which a construct with which you could use it in the future. And so a lot of what Misty's talking about, again, I feel like Little John, and all I'm sitting here doing is going,
doing great, buddy.
Okay, is being a support to say that, and I've heard a few sessions earlier, the technology in the last 5 years has come so much farther than it has over the last 15 years, and that a lot of these functionalities are available today. A lot of them are even here today. It's imperative upon you to begin that conversation. When we think of a two-way positive response or an enhanced positive response, we think of it as more of a conversation, to Misty's point of not just being a single, yep, marked, or marked in a single comment, but if there's other dialogue that goes back and forth. So again, I'm up here, little John, you know, you're like, yeah.
He's gonna jump right in here. He's my support animal, in case you guys don't know. He's my support animal today. I'm gonna go through, and I know CJ's gonna wanna interject in some of these, just being that obviously he's there to help support us with the technology and the software and where we're trying to go with it, right? Like, it really does take a backbone and a village to try to figure out how do we get here. You know, I can have this beautiful vision of a roadmap to get there, and my developer's like, nah. We're not doing that. We're not going in the same direction you are. That's a pipe dream. Luckily, I'm with a group that doesn't feel like everything that we put in front of them is a pipe dream, because we have some of the pieces already in place to start moving forward even further. So a couple things I've just referenced here in the sidebar, and we can kind of bounce back and forth on this one, but we already have the ability for excavators to add an attachment now in Exactix, and I'm going to kind of show you guys what a little bit of that looks like. One of the things that I do in South Carolina, and this was based on some near misses that we had several years ago, was when the excavator digs the site box marker in the system, I actually send it to them in an attachment. It's like a JPEG attachment that goes out on the ticket. Because I find if Betty Sue, let's just say, put that in the office somewhere in another state, and the guy in the field realizes as he's going in to check positive response or what have you, you know, is that ticket done? Is it ready to go? What's going on with it? That the dig site was in the wrong place. Somebody's got the ability to throw the flag up. We have to keep in mind that there's more than one person that's involved in this process. And that starts from soup to nuts, from the time the ticket goes in to the time it gets updated, remarked, and then eventually hopefully closed at the end of it. So keep that in mind. We have the ability to add elements into the comments now. Like if you had a link that you wanted to add in there, you can add a link in the comments. What we want to be able to do is build an API for the things like what UtiliQuest is doing, and we're almost completed with that. John's currently working on that, and it's almost finalized. So we are already interjecting APIs into other pieces of our system, whether it be mapping data or other things. So that was not really a hard sale, right? So we're getting there, and that should be done momentarily. Currently, excavators, and we actually found a bug in our system this week that we're having fixed, but currently excavators have the ability in the mobile version to add comments to tickets, whether it be positive response or otherwise. We're having an issue with it right now in our regular desktop model, but that's being rectified. So they do have the ability to add a comment. How often do you think excavators do that? Never. They never do it. It's there. They don't use it. How many people are afraid of what excavators will put in the comments if you give them comments? Perfect. Well, we're hoping, obviously, that doesn't occur. I think more of those conversations are more of a face-to-face interaction that happens in the field. But obviously, there's some hostility there. I think if they just have an outlet and the ability to be able to have that two-way conversation, it's going to mitigate some of those nightmares. Revision screens, I'm going to show you kind of what ours look like. I am going to show you, Code 60 was one that I realized like 7 years ago was an issue. And we started creating pop-up boxes, even when we were on a different system, to try to mitigate that because we knew it was being abused. It's kind of like a black hole. Yeah. We agreed to a documented marking schedule. Sure you did. Sure. Who'd you talk to? Give me his Christian name. Firstborn child. I need more information. Tell me more. And so we've already interjected some of that, and I'm going to show you a little bit more expansion. And Twilio text messages currently, again, it's being utilized in our system, but right now, rather than for positive response, we're using it for emergency callouts, right? So all of these technologies are already in the process of what we have in the system. So here's just an example of a ticket. I told you about that map. I just opened it up. You can see it shows up as a JPEG here, and you can open it, download it, do whatever you want with it. But it's essentially what they've used on their dig site. You also have the ability to add attachments, and multiple attachments can be added in here. So I think that's a great tool, you know, when you've got maps, prints, white line sketches, whatever the thing is, you know, that's definitely a use for this process. One thing that I liked in just kind of changing systems and kind of moving over into what Exactix offers us is the ability to have screens that, this obviously is a portion of what that looks like, but screens that have all of the history, like if you look at the revisions on tickets, everything that we do in our system has a revision, or I'm sorry, a version number. And so there could be multiple versions of a ticket. The amount of data that we've been able to capture as it relates to that, like I think I was telling somebody earlier, that I have the ability to see that 72% of the jobs that go in for fiber work are completed on the first version, the very first ticket. I wouldn't be able to see that if I didn't have version numbers. So that is a cool function. Here's just an example of where in the comment fields we'd be able to add in some of those contextual pieces like what UtiliQuest has as far as going to prints, providing operator facility information, what have you. This is just what our positive response screen looks like, so you can see which member operators are on the ticket, what codes they're using, the context of those codes, so on and so forth. This is what I was talking about here. One of the things that's required in my state is to be able to validate if somebody checked positive response. And I don't think a lot of states do that, or they maybe didn't consider that in their law. It's made the system tricky. Like, it's not an easy thing to interject in here. John had a great time figuring that out when we moved systems. But you can see the version number, who put in the ticket. You can see that the excavator checked positive response. How cool is that? Now I know how many people and how often they're checking positive response. How often are they engaging? We're going to be able to see engagement go up as well once we start, incorporating some of these other pieces to the pie.
Misty?
Yes, sir.
If I could, I think that's an interesting data point. And if you think about some of these data points for the future, you may have heard Jason and even Scott Crawford talk about artificial intelligence and the data collected, right? So you've got so many different centers, and this could be potentially really an anonymized data point that may have impact. It may not. The thing is, we don't know just yet until we get a little bit of a runway ahead of us and are able to look back with the right amount of data.
Thank you, CJ. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on the version numbers? Any questions on any of this so far? Yes, sir.
Is it because the excavator that you can see reviewed or viewed it?
Yes. And you can see that down to the user level based on how the permissions are set up for a company. So you could have one guy or one girl that puts in the tickets in the office maybe, a foreman that's checking PR, another guy that's closing the tickets out, and obviously any of those permissions could be set up at that user level to see any, all, or just the pieces that you want to see. So, great question, Michelle. Okay. So this is what I was mentioning earlier about code 60, which is excavator and excavator and locator agreed to a documented marking schedule. This is just an example of the original pop-up for us. Pop-ups are a pain. You know why pop-ups are a pain? Because fictitious codes or misuse of codes is a pain. And I want to make it harder for people to misuse codes. I mean, that's just behavior, right? You make it harder. You make them fill out more information. It makes it harder to cheat the system. And I'm not saying everybody's cheating the system, but we all know that there's gamers, and they're getting good at it. So we have to get better. This really, honestly, overnight, as soon as we interjected this into our previous system, I watched our 60 codes drop by like 40%. Just this. Same thing with things that Kevin does in New York. You raise the rate on something, you change the process, you watch it change. You watch behavior change. We're just trying to shake it up. We're going to ask for more information. I want to know, okay, cool. You've agreed to something. Now tell me who did you talk to? What's their phone number? What's your name? And then when are you going to mark it? Like if it's not today, what did you guys agree upon? And that's going to be an amazing data set. I'm going to show you a little bit about that one if we have time towards the end. But I'm able to actually validate that. Michelle?
Are you going to ask that for the 30 code as well?
That's what I'm getting to. Don't get ahead of me. Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. This is just an example. We have some mock-ups I'm going to go through for you guys. But this is just another example of a text message output. It's pretty awesome. I don't know if you saw Taylor Swift text messaging Exactix tickets, but it's just an example of what it would look like in a text message if you wanted to know the code or the ticket number or any relative information that would be part of that output in Twilio.
One of those two is real.
And one is not. Can you figure it out?
One is not, but one is real.
We don't do a lot of, Travis Kelsey doesn't do a lot of excavation work, but, every now and then. Wait, let me go back. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently he lives in the upstate of South Carolina. That's what I'm seeing. Uh-oh, what happened? Did I skip something? I feel like I skipped something. Nope. All right, we're good. Sorry. Got me all miscombobulated. All right, so I kind of want to talk where our progress is. in our codes, and some challenges that I think you're probably going to run across if you have positive response or don't have positive response. And honestly, I think anytime that you go in to change technology, it could come down like a house of cards. Like, you have got to think through every single widget that could go wrong. There's so many moving parts behind our system, and I don't know how often you guys are doing technology iterations, but it's imperative that your developers are in that mix of understanding every little string you pull could pull the whole house of cards down if you don't do it right. So you got to think through all this residual stuff, the no-show tickets. Can you send a resend? Can you not send a resend? And all the different functionality that's built into whatever you said it was from the beginning. So, and just kind of looking through this, behavioral issues. Focus on, every state's a little bit different, but I'm gonna be honest, if we've sat in the one-call stuff, like, we're all dealing with the same stuff. It's almost verbatim. The difference is her language might be different in her state versus where we are, but it's all the same. It's very, very similar. Think about what your behavioral issues are that you're trying to mitigate. What is the coding, and what do you want the next set of coding, the iteration to be? I'm going to show you what our current codes are and the direction that we're going. Are you focusing on screening issues or misuse of codes? Are you forcing feedback? What sort of data do you want to get out of it at the end of it? And one thing that we wanted to do, you know, and nothing against any of the states, we've all had to start at the same place. I think we have about 16 codes right now as far as positive response codes. Honestly, do we need that many? At the end of the day, is it marked? Is it not marked? And is it no conflict? That's what I'm trying to get to. Now, there's a few nuances in our law that I have to address, like extraordinary circumstance, or I think design tickets is something that's referenced very specifically in our law, so we had to, we didn't vary much from the language and what that looks like, but this is what our current codes are. Open codes are, I gave you a response code, maybe by the commencement date, but it's not, I can go dig today, right? So that prime example I was talking about at the top, the 30, 31, I want you to think about that. Locate not complete, couldn't contact excavator. Most of you probably have that already. Insufficient information, please provide additional information. But they don't tell you what. They don't tell you what. Closed codes mean that's a code that technically I could go dig on. Now, if you get out there, you see visual indicators, you know, all bets are off, you got to do something else, right? But logistically, you could go dig. And in my state, if they've all responded by the commencement date, you can go. If it's on day 2, super, you're a day ahead. Oop. I know this is like an eye chart. What I'm trying to get to, and I'm going to go over these two specifically because I don't have all day to take you through the wizardry. But every one of these codes, if you focus on what I mentioned earlier and you focus on, is it not marked? Is it marked? And is it no conflict? Each one of those has subcodes associated to it. We also have subcodes on some of these other ones, but we're going to focus on those two on the top, you know, in and of itself, to just kind of take you through what this looks like. Because I think 30 is the biggest one that we have to get to, and what, okay, it wasn't marked, so tell me everything. I want to know, why is it not marked? So we focused a lot on, is it an access issue? Is it insufficient information? And when you think about all of the things that we had in those previous codes, we started consolidating these under one code now. Now that's a subcode. Insufficient information, or I couldn't reach the excavator, those have now become a subset of the, hey, I just can't mark it, and here's the reasons why. Obviously, some of these are not clean because we've been using this as our template to work from, but just disregard some of this other stuff. But unable to reach excavator. Same thing with some of the critical facilities. I know a lot of the states have critical facilities marked for gas groups and things of that nature. But again, they still fall into that same jurisdiction of, is it marked, is it not marked, or is it no conflict? So just kind of consider that when you go back and look at your own codes. And then I'm going to just kind of dig into code 60s a little bit more. We're looking to press it forward a little bit further. Like, okay, cool, we asked you, the person, when are you doing it, Christian name, the whole thing. But we also want to know a little bit more about the project. And if you're not getting it done by today, like, why? Is there, give me a little more. Just need a little more information. All right, so here's an information visual on one of our mock-ups. Get anything to add here, CJ?
Nope.
No. I'm feeling very, very supported, by the way. I just want to put that out there. Okay, so we kind of, when you look at our system, and keep this in mind, right? Third parties are going to do their own thing. As long as it can be mapped to their system, take out of your mind drop-downs. But obviously, when excavators are using our tools, it's drop-downs, right? Like, we're using drop-downs. So what would be in some of the context of those drop-downs would be like this. If I'm using a code 30B, these are some additional peripheral data that I'm asking for. But in the end of the day, it's just an additional field of data that you're asking for the bulk responders. So excavator information, locator's required to comment when they close insufficient info, asking for the ability for multiple options and drop down. So excavator, the reason for couldn't be located, insufficient info on the locate, where on the locate ticket? Nobody tells you what's wrong with the ticket. They just put the code and send it down the pike. And what happens? Excavator goes, well, I don't know what's wrong with it. Nobody told me what's wrong with it. We have to know what's wrong with it. Think about what Scott talked about in the automation. We want to be able to automate things. Like if it's a bad excavator contact number, we can automate an email to that guy or an email to Betty Sue in the office. Update the information. Here's a link. Let me help you out. Like you got to think further down the line on how you can use the data and how you can start automating some of these things that have been a historical nightmare. Here's just another example of another code 30. We're using code E for unable to reach excavator. Which number did you call? Did you just have that guy's number in your phone? Maybe you did. Maybe that number doesn't match the number we have. Again, automation around, did you talk to him? Probably not. If you didn't, you're using this code. Maybe you just used the code because you felt like it. I just need to know more in order to address this issue on the next ticket. Code 60, we kind of talked through this when I expanded some of the information here. We are working on definitions in our new law that hopefully will be coming out next year on what a project ticket is. We also recognize there's going to have to be another iteration for us. Like this is step one for me, like just getting to the subcodes, addressing the API links, and some of these other smaller peripheral items we're talking about. That's my first iteration. Second iteration is digging at project tickets. But right now I don't have a definition, so it's really hard to kick that one down the road too far other than what we already have, which is great data. I have some cool reporting I'm going to show you on that code 60 as far as did they get out there in the time that they said they were. One of the things that the excavators wanted in our state was an acknowledgement. I think other people have talked about this. They said it was a code 60. They said they talked to me. My name's on the ticket. Excavator has the ability, and the direction we're going is they have the ability to say, is that legit or not? The thing that was important to us and our board was to say that, okay, cool, maybe it's legitimate, and that guy can acknowledge yes, and there's, now you've got this documented marking schedule that says it's going to be done by this day, and that guy said, yeah, cool. Now I have a way at the center to say that's a legitimate ticket that the excavator validated. What's important to note is I don't want this to hold the ticket up. I can't get even every 100% of excavators to check positive response. I'm not going to hold the ticket up waiting for the guy that doesn't do it to validate that. But the option is there for abuse. Does that make sense? Right? I don't want this to hold up the locate process because we'll be waiting a while if we're waiting on that in certain instances. So we didn't want to do that, but we do want to add that additional commentary. Maybe there's a meet that has to happen. Maybe they have to meet on site. Could be a million things. We took meet tickets out of our process because it was very confusing, but I do think this is a place where meet tickets belong. Also in the design phase, it's another place that belongs. We're actually interjecting it there as well. So this is where the game changes. I'm sorry, am I blocking your view? Am I blocking your screen? Sorry, okay. So project delayed, inadequate locate, not compliant, inadequate locate overmarked, and these are not official, by the way, okay? I can tell you right now, by the time I put this slide out, and we had our last committee meeting, a couple of these got the kibosh, no doubt, all right? But these are the things that we've been kicking around as to, reasons that an excavator or rationales that an excavator, when he goes to close out the ticket, wants to tell me. Maybe he wants to tell me that the locator did a great job. It can happen. We've got good people out there, right? We wanted to be able to allow them some additional information, not only for their own tracking purposes, but for the call center to be able to track that when the job's done. Like, I need to see more of these validations and behaviors, right? How can we address it further? If I don't know it's happening, I can't help fix it. This is our means to do that. So this is what an excavator would get in a closeout screen, okay? All right. I'm in the home stretch here. So I think this is where, as a center, you need to think through these challenges. Maybe you currently don't have enough data, and anyone that knows me knows my middle name is data. And we have data upon data. And data is only as good as what you do with it and what you can rationalize from behavior. I think I need more. I've got great data, But I also know that I can see issues in the system, but I can't validate them completely. And I need more information. So do you have enough data right now to even rationalize what this looks like? Could you build this model based on the data you have today? If you don't have it, get it. Get it. If you need help doing that, call me. Find me. I will help you figure that out. If you're a call center, the data's there. You just have to figure out how to plug it in and use it. Do your technology, obviously we use Earth, but does the technology that you have today, is your developer willing to do this? Can they do it? Will they do it? Do they have the same vision as you? That's a huge one. It probably should be at the top, because that's probably the hardest part. System logic, automation, no-shows, thinking about all your secondary actions and other peripheral information that happens on a ticket. Think through that. How much stuff is this going to break?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
John Cachet would be here in the back row, red-faced and angry with me right now, but he's not here. So, text message opt-ins. If you're not using Twilio or some other similar tool, research it, take a look at it. Has some great utilization. How many of you are currently physically, as a call center, calling out emergencies? Yeah, don't do that. There's technology tools for automation of that. Twilio is a great example. We've used others, but I think Twilio is the best of them. And then large projects, like I said, everyone's got that as an issue. We're going to have to do a second iteration of this because it's way more complex, way more complex to try to look at large projects. We don't even have a definition, so we're just going to pump the brakes on that one. So I'm pretty sure I put some data points in here. Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of go through a couple of data points, and I know we got a few minutes, and I definitely want to leave time for questions. So do I have to 45? Where's Steve? All right, so these are just a couple examples of some of the data that we have. This is an example of, and when I say as far as the response time, we're looking at, there were 5 operators on the ticket. Did every single operator respond in the time of commencement, by the time of commencement? Does that make sense? So every one of them had to respond for that 65%. So a lot of what I look at is the types of work that's happening when is it late, is it on time, you know. We also look at the ticket types down here in the bottom corner, and then obviously the areas in the state. This is done by county. It's easy to do county data. And one of the big things that we're focused on right now at the board level is these. That is a systemic behavior, and we're trying to figure out a way to address it. Never responding to a notice. And I'm looking right now, not just at the time of commencement, but by the time the ticket expires. And I mentioned that earlier, but man, our guys have just wizarded some data up on that, and it made me want to vomit a little bit. I'm like, it's the same people. You know, we got to make a change. We got to do something about it. So next one, okay, similar slides, same data. If you look at the top toolbar here, we're looking at, okay, it was late. It was in that late category. When was it late? Was it on, and our ticket life is 15 days. Was it in 1 to 3 days, 4 to 5 days, more than 15? More than 15 is no bueno. Show's over. They probably already dug through it by now, or they maybe missed it, and they got lucky. And this is just by work type, but you can dice this up 60 different ways by the ticket data that you have. All right, so, and don't take pictures of this one, please. This is just for examples, but being able to kind of see all of the responses that are entered by some of the different groups that are doing that, it's interesting to me to be able to see it not just by the member operator name, but this is all responses. This doesn't have anything to do with whether on time, and so it's very broad in perspective. But over the course of a year, this report has the ability to dice it down by code. Like if I see spikes, let's just say I interject this enhancement to our system, and code 30s drop by like 60%. I want to be able to see it. And this gives me instant feedback as to what that looks like. And we can not just see it by the operator level, but by the member level. We've got code reports that we use in enforcement that say, if it's an excavator, I want to know that excavator says, oh, they never respond for me. Well, I got a report that shows me that. I can see that legitimately everywhere that you operate, every ticket that you work, by your excavator name, if that's legit. Yep, okay, speeding it up. Last one I'm going to show you is the code 60. This is just the one that says, has it been marked on time? And how many days, I'm sorry, this is the one, how many days did they push the work date out? And was it closed before the time that they said they were going to mark it? Code 60, that box is the reason that we have that. Conclusion, guys, This is a great option for you guys to be able to consider if you have positive response, if you want to look at some of your data, if you need some support. I could come out and speak all day long about the benefits of what positive response provides. I think this is going to take us into the future of what that two-way communication looks like, and I appreciate everyone's time. Any questions? Stevie said I got a minute. Anybody? Sir. Ryan.
On the code 60, the response form that the excavator gets to fill out, like you said, sometimes those are submitted where they didn't agree to that and they want to be able to leave that feedback, it looked like. Where does that go? Is that just recorded to the center or what?
Nope, it would go into the history of the ticket. It would be able to show up in that revisions tab. I'm sorry, where the comments are for the positive response piece, it would show up in there.
So it would push a revision ticket out with that?
No, it wouldn't be a revision, not a revision, I'm sorry. It would go where the positive response codes show up. Okay. It's almost like it's interjected like a code. That data would be there. Good question. Anybody else?
One more question. Are you currently pulling data for the excavator closeout when they close out the ticket? Are you
Pulling, if they close it out? Yeah, we have that data. And it's probably about 26% of the time that they actually close it out before the 15-day ticket life ends, currently in my state. Somebody else? Yes, sir.
Does your state regulators have access to the?
Not currently. We work with our Attorney General's office as our enforcement body. I have a guy that's in my office that helps do some of the research that goes into those and then provides, we have an automated system with the Attorney General, but it's outside of our ticket system. Good question. Anyone else? If you have questions, I know I'm out of time, but listen, you guys know where to find me. Go to our website, my email's out there. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have when this is over. Thank you for your time.